Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Fearcat here today, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different video. Today we're actually going to be doing a deck profile of the Scarab God EDH deck. So I've been playing this deck for since 2018, end of 2018. So yeah, it's been I've made so many adjustments to this deck, but I finally think I'm at a point in time where I'm able to you know express and actually give off the opinions on this deck and the actual I've been able to get all the cards for it basically. So what is composed inside of this deck? What we're running is 34 lands with 18 basics, 3 mana rocks, 8 creature strengtheners, 5 regenerative cards, 6 cards that deal with sacrificing creatures and stuff like that, 7 token generators for Scarab God's effect, 6 milling cards. This includes self-milling and milling our opponents, 12 draw power cards, 4 counter spells, and 14 cards I just threw into a thing, for lack of a better word, utility. And then finally, we're also going to be talking about we're going to be showing 25 alternate cards you could add to this deck to make it work. And we are also going to be talking about different commanders for zombies, for zombie players, because there's a lot of different ones you can use. And we're also going to be talking about alternate win cons and combos with this deck. So what's our objective of how we win with this deck? So our objective is to burn out our opponents by storming the field with zombies and zombie tokens. When you do this, Scarab God burns opponents, and we also get to scry off of his effect. See if we can zoom in on this a little bit. Perfect. Come on, focus for me. So you pay 2 colorless, a blue and a black, and you exile target creature from a grave, and then you create a copy of it that still gets the effect, and it is a 4/4 black zombie. And also, at the beginning of your upkeep, how many zombies you have on the field. This includes zombie tokens. For that amount, X, you get to scry that many, and your opponents also get burnt for how many you have. And also, it has 3 awesome effects. When Scarab God actually dies, it returns to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So yeah, we have Scarab God, and here, let's see here. I just had to flex, I'm super proud of this. So hold on, let me show you guys. Let me show you guys something real quick. I had to brag on the art a little bit. You know what I mean? And then of course we have, let's see, we have zombie, and zombie. So we got our zombie tokens. that's what that is. So all right, let's move on to lands first. Let's see here, get all these up. So as we said, we're running 18 basic lands. 4 of these coming from islands, and then 14 coming from swamp. I'm not gonna show them. I'm just gonna move on to the other lands. So for the other non-basic lands, we're running Mystic Sanctuary. We need to focus on there, please. Come on, there we go. Cabal Coffers, Bajuka Bog, Earborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, Unholy Grotto. We get, come on, focus for me. Let's see. Come on, let's get a focus. Are you gonna focus at all? I don't know. So yeah, we're running Cabal Coffers, Mystic Sanctuary, Deerborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, Bazooka Bog, and Unholy Grotto. We are also running Temple of Deceit, Sumir Aqueduct, Beaded Pools, Watery Grave, Drowned Catacomb, Morphic Pool, Sunken Hollow, Choked Estuary, Polluted Delta, Underground Sea, Command Tower, and that's it for the lands. And we are only running 3 mana rocks, but I honestly, so far it's been like I don't feel we need to run more. Honestly, it's been in a comfortable spot. So yeah, we are running Soul Ring, of course. Every deck runs Soul Ring, Dimir Signet, and Commander Sphere. Got your 1, 2, and 3 Austin. All right. So let's move on to our creature strengtheners. Okay, are we good here? All right, awesome. So for creature strengtheners, what this means is, you know, it just buffs the cards that buff up our creatures and stuff like that, and make them give them more effects and stuff like that. So we're running Diregraph Captain. This one says it has Death Touch. Other zombies we have get +1/+1, and when one dies, I get to ping somebody for 1 for every for every zombie that dies. We have Cemetery Reaper. Again, we have other zombies creatures you control get +1/+1, and you can tap 2 colorless and a black to exile target creature card from a graveyard. Put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. We have Ward of the Accursed. Other zombies you control get +1/+1, and you can play 1 colorless and 1 black. And all of our zombies get Menace until the end of turn. So this is actually really good with Lightning Greaves, which we also have in the deck, but we will look at that in a second. We have Death Baron. Skeleton creatures you control, we don't run any skeletons, and other zombie creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. We run Undead Warchief. Zombie spells you play cost 1. Come on, focus here. Here, I'll just hold it up. It's not wanting to focus. This is the new. Let's see. Come on now. It's probably because it's foil. Let's be real. Zombies. Okay, so zombie spells we play cost 1 less to play, and then all of our zombies get +2/+1. We are running Zombie Master. All zombies gain Swamp Walk and tap 1 black for regeneration. We are running Wonder. So when this is in the grave, I love this card because zombies don't deal with flying really well, but Wonder gives you that. When you have a graveyard deck, this is perfect. You just throw it in the graveyard. You know, you use Buried Alive or something like that. So yeah, I mean that it says you have to control an island, but that's very simple in this deck. So yeah, we run Mikaeus. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. And other non-creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. So this includes Scarab God. So that's awesome. That's why we like it. And of course, when running Mikaeus, we're running Triskelion. Now this is an infinite combo, which we're gonna talk more about later. But yeah, for now, yeah, you have Mikaeus and Triskelion. Okay, so moving on, we have the creatures and spells that like to regenerate things. Let's see here, and we have 5 of those. If it will focus, it won't focus. We're gonna have to hold it up. All right. So what we're running here is Gravecrawler. There's a bunch of reasons we run this card. One of the reasons being it's a very cheap card to get out, and it's a very easy card to get out. It can't block, as you can see there. It can't block, but it's just such an easy card to get out, and that's why we love it. And also more reasons to come for why we love this card. We're running Relentless Dead. This helps us to get zombies from our grave to the battlefield. It has Menace, and when it dies, we can tap 1 black and return it to our hand. We're running Gisem Geralf. When it comes into play, we get the mill 4. And we can once per turn, we can cast a zombie creature card from our grave. We're running Havengal Lich. You tap 1 colorless, and you may cast target creature card from a graveyard this turn. So that can be from anybody's graveyard. When you cast that card, it gets Havengal Lich gets all the activated abilities of that card. Just the activated ability. And finally, our favorite card that regenerates is Ever After. We tap 4 colorless and 2 black, and we get to return up to 2 target creature cards from our grave to the battlefield. They're both black zombies, in addition to its other colors and types. When this goes to not when it goes in the grave, put Ever After on the bottom of its owner's library, so it never even hits the grave. You cast it, and then you put it on your, under your library. Let's see. So next we have the cards that sacrifice, that are associated with sacrificing. So right now we're running 6 cards that do that. Okay, so we're running Altar of Dementia. This is our favorite sacrifice card. When we do that, we can sacrifice a creature into speed. Target player puts a number of cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power into the grave. So we can mill ourselves with this, which we love to do, but we can also mill our opponents with this, which is also awesome to do. Sidizzy, Undead Vizier. He has Death Touch and Exploit, and it's literally a creature form of Demonic Tutor. So you summon them, sacrifice the creature, and then you get a card from your library into your hand, and then shuffle, of course. We have Fleshbag Marauder. When it comes into play, each player sacrifices a creature, but the reason we love this is because when you summon Fleshbag, you can sack itself, and everybody has to sack a creature, and you just sacked what you summoned. And I guess you wouldn't want to do this all the time, I guess, but most of the time I feel like you would want to just go ahead and sacrifice that Fleshbag. But it's an option. We run Grimgrin. So Grimgrin enters the battlefield untapped and doesn't untap during our untap step. We sack a creature and Grimgrin untaps, and then we put a +1/+1 counter on it. When Grimgrin attacks, destroy target creature defending player controls, then put a +1/+1 counter on Grimgrin. So Grimgrin is nasty. He is such a nasty card. He's nasty, okay? So obviously when you swing with him, he taps, and then you sacrifice another creature, he gets another +1/+1, and then he attacks again, and he gets another +1/+1, and you destroy stuff. It's just like, he can get big quick. He can get really big really quick, and you get to destroy other people's cards. So that's why we love that. And then finally, these cards don't really allow us to sacrifice, but these cards are 2 of the reasons why we love sacrificing. So these read Vengeful Dead and Plague Belcher. Whenever Vengeful Dead or another zombie is put into a graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. And then Plague Belcher, whenever another zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So it's the same. It's the same effect. And Plague Belcher is a 5/4 for only 3 mana, only 1 black. And when it enters, you can put 2 -1/-1 counters on a target creature you control. So you kill a creature basically when it gets summoned, and then everybody loses 1 life. So it's awesome. So moving on, we have one of my favorite categories, token generators. Let's see here. So here's what we got for token generator. We're running Crypt Breaker. You can tap 1 colorless and 1 black, and discard a card, put a 2/2 black zombie token onto the battlefield, and then you can tap 3 untapped zombies you control. You draw a card, and you lose 1 life. So basically, you have draw power, and you can put stuff into the grave, and you get zombie token. It's a really good card for cheap. It's a great turn 1 card to pull out, because on turn 2 that's when you can start generating pretty early, and we love it. Dreadhorde Invasion. It's an enchantment, 1 colorless, 1 black. We have at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass 1. You create a zombie army token if you don't have one, or you can put a +1/+1 on your zombie army token if you do already have a zombie token army. A lot of words. Whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink until end of turn. The reason why we love this is because we already are buffing up our zombies. So we don't even need to amass that many times. We're already gonna have +1/+1 counters on it. So what I'm saying is we can get this to 6 pretty easily. It doesn't take a whole lot of time usually. Next up we have Diregraph Colossus. We can pay 2 colorless and a black. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each zombie card in your grave. And most of the time we're gonna have a good amount of zombie cards in our grave. Whenever you cast a zombie spell, put a 2/2 black zombie token creature onto the battlefield tapped. And that is a nasty effect right there. Very underappreciated. Let's see. So next we have Dark Salvation. Target player puts X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, and up to 1 target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn for each zombie that player controls. So basically, most of the time we wouldn't want to. I feel like it's just an option. You can nuke somebody's creature that's getting really, really scary, or you can just put more tokens on your battlefield. I like this card because you get that option. You can use it more than one way, basically. We're running Grave Titan, 4 colorless and 2 black. It has Death Touch. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, put 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. This is a nasty card. I don't know what to say. It's a 6/6, and it's just a nasty card, man. It's just nasty. Another one of my favorites is Newscraft Mob. It costs 4 colorless and 2 black. It enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever a player casts a spell, remove a counter from Newscraft Mob, and that creates a 2/2 black zombie token. And it does not come in tapped, so it's just a nasty card. And if you have usually it'll die because it's a 0/0, right? So if you remove all 5, it'll die. But if you have even 1 creature on the field that gives it a +1/+1, it'll stay alive, and that's a really good thing. Okay, and then we have Army of the Damned. It is a 5 colorless and 3 black cost. We put 13 2/2 black zombie token creatures onto the battlefield tapped. The only drawback from this card is the fact that they come in tapped. There's a lot of games where this card could have saved me had they not come in tapped. But I mean, it is 13 zombie tokens, so you can't complain too much. It works with Scarab God really well. It's a very good late game card. So coming up next, let's see here. So coming up next, we have the milling category. So this it's kind of milling, But here's our cards. Okay, we're running Entomb. That's why I was saying it's kind of milling. It basically is. We search our library for a card and put it into our grave, then shuffle our library. It's a pretty. It's just it only costs 1 black, and it's a great card. And yeah, I mean, but with running Entomb, you also got to run Buried Alive. You know, you got to share the love a little bit. You pay 2 colorless and 1 black, and you search your library for up to 3 creature cards, and then put them in your grave. Then shuffle your library. So those 2 cards, awesome. Buried Alive has a combo that we'll talk about in a little bit. We're actually going to set it to the side so we don't forget. So yeah. So next we're running Mesmeric Orb. We love this card. It's 2 colorless. Whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills that many cards from the top of their library. Man, so this card mills our opponents really, really good, and it mills us really, really good. This card is a phenomenal mill card. It's one of the best mill cards, I think, that I've come across. I love it. It's amazing, and it's only 2 colorless mana. If you play that turn 2, people will look at you. Okay, they will look at you, and they will not be happy. Next we have Search for Escanta. 1 colorless and 1 blue. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put it into your grave, and then if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may transform. So when it transforms, I guess we'll go ahead and pull it out here. So when it transforms, it turns into a legendary land. You can tap it for a blue mana, and then you can tap 2 colorless and a blue mana. To tap this card, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So it's basically a really, really good it's a good kind of draw power card, I guess you could say. So it's an amazing card all around, and that is also a you may transform it. So if you don't want to do that, I mean, I guess in most cases you would want to transform it, but you don't have to. Next up we have Dread Summons. It's a X black. Each player puts the top, let's see if we can get a zoom. Each player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Again, we're milling our opponents as well as us. For each creature card put into a graveyard this way, you put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped. So yeah, but it's self-milling and milling our opponents, and we love it. And we get zombie tokens for milling, which is just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And then finally, for our last milling card, we have Dreamborn Muse. So with this one, you can tap 2 colorless and 2 blue at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player puts the top X cards of his or her library into the grave. So it's fairly simple. It's similar to Mesmeric Orb, but yeah, so it's basically self-mill and get to mill people. And that's it's an extremely good card. Alright, so coming up next we have, let's see here. We have 12 draw power cards. Okay. Alright. So coming up next we have 12 draw power cards. So here's what these are. We have Vampiric Tutor and Demonic Tutor, our tutors of course. We have Heuristic Study. We have Monastery Siege. I mean, I didn't say much about Heuristic Study, Vampiric Tutor, and Demonic Tutor just because I think Heuristic Study is probably the best. I don't know. I can't say that for sure, but it's one. I will just say this: it is one of the best draw power cards in EDH. I will say that. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay 1 colorless, and a lot of people don't want to pay 1 colorless. Monastery Siege is a 2 colorless and 1 blue. You can choose cons or dragons. Let's zoom in on this effect. Again. Cons at the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card, then discard a card. So we get to put stuff into the grave, and we also get to draw. And so we love that. And then dragons, we get a lot more use from cons, but let's try and come on. All right. Spells your opponent's cast that target you or a permanent you control cost 2 more to cast. So a lot of times there's not a whole lot of I mean there's quite a few, but it's just not as consistent as the cons effect is, and that therefore we don't really like it as much. We like draw her more. And we have Thirst for a Meaning. We have it. You pay 2 colorless and 1 blue. You draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an enchantment card. We have a decent number of enchantment cards if you were to want to discard an enchantment card. But at the same time, you could just discard cards that you can get back anyway. You know, just pour them in your grave. Fill up your graveyard. I will say, we're running more instants than we are enchantments. So, for these 2 cards right here, for Thirst for Meaning and Monastery Siege, it's what I'll probably do at some point, and what I'll probably put in the official deck profile is I'm probably going to replace Thirst for Meaning with Frantic Search. It basically does the same thing. You draw 2, but this time you draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. But then it costs the same amount of mana on precisely. But you get your lands untapped, and the fact that we're running more instants than we are enchantments just makes it a better card. So we're gonna replace that with Frantic Search most likely, and then with Monastery Siege, we're probably going to be replacing it with Brainstorm. So yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there. That's probably what I'm gonna put in the official deck profile on the tapped out, or whatever we end up putting it on. I'm not sure yet. Next we have Phyrexian Arena. We pay 2 black and a colorless. At the beginning of our upkeep, we draw a card and you lose 1 life. Again, that's one of the best black draw power cards out there. We have Factor Fiction. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates them into 2 piles. Put 1 in your hand. Put the other in the grave. Amazing. This is an amazing card for a graveyard deck. It doesn't. Most of the time, it doesn't matter. It's a great card. It's 4 mana. So yeah. Next, we have another one. This is one you got to be careful with. But we have Gravemoorn Muse. It costs 2 black and 2 colorless. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of zombies you control. So the reason we want to be careful with this card is because you don't want to have so many zombie tokens and have to lose 15 life. I've done that before, and it's not fun, guys. It's not fun at all. Yeah, it's just not a fun experience. You don't want to lose that much life for that. You draw a lot of cards, but it's not worth it unless you're gonna like OTK or something. So next up we have Forgotten Creation. It has Skulk for 3 colorless and a blue. This creature can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. At the beginning of our upkeep, you may discard all the cards in your hand. If you do, draw that many cards. Coming up next, we also have a similar card. It's Ancient Excavation. You pay 2 colorless and a blue and a black. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand, then discard a card for each card drawn this way. And it also has 2 colorless basic land cycling if you need land, which is also that's a very versatile card right there. We have Windfall, 2 colorless and 1 blue. Each player discards all the cards in their hand, then draws equal to the greatest number of cards a player discard this way. Reading these out loud, man, there's a lot of words. But yeah, so we love putting cards in our grave. We'll say that again. And we just love cycling, not cycling. We just love going through our deck basically, and getting what we need in the grave and what we need in our hand. And that's why we love these. And also we're running basically the same card, almost. 2 colorless and 1 blue and 1 black for Whispering Madness. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws equal to the amount equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So it is the same effect. However, you can zoom in, please. We have a Cipher effect. Then you may exile the spell card and code it on a creature card you control whenever a what is it? Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, uh, brain fart. Its controller may cast a copy of the encarded card without paying its mana cost. So yeah. So basically, what that means, I should have just went ahead and said that, is it basically has a second trigger. Okay. So this card, when you play this card, you get it twice. You get this card twice. And then to go along with those cards, Windfall, Whispering Madness, and actually just Windfall and Whispering Madness, we have Notion Thief. So this is a disgusting card to play in response to you playing Windfall. So it has flash. It's 2 colorless, 1 blue, and 1 black. If an opponent would draw a card except the first one he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. So let me see. So basically, if I'm getting this right, maybe I'm not, but if I'm getting this right, you could play that in response to Windfall. But I was just reading it again. It makes the card's read a little weird. So yeah, I think it would be. I think you could do that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do that. Coming up next, we have 4 counter spells. And you may be thinking that's not enough, but no, 4 counter spells has worked perfectly for us. And so here's what we got. We have Swan Song. It's 1 blue mana, counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell. Its controller puts a 2/2 blue bird with flying onto the battlefield. We have Drown in the Watch. This is a pretty versatile card. You pay 1 blue and 1 black. Counter target spell is converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in the controller's graveyard, or you can destroy target creature with the same effect. So you choose one. So the fact that we're milling our opponents most of the time is perfect. That's why we run this card. It's most of the time they're going to have a good number of cards in their grave when they're going against us. Coming up next, we have Mana Drain. You pay 2 blue. It's an instant counter target spell at the beginning of your next main phase. Add an amount of colorless mana. Sorry. Look, kid, I know you're struggling with your English, but get good. It's so weird reading these old cards. Add an amount of colorless mana to your mana pool equal to that spell's converted mana cost. So if we counter something that costed 6 mana, we have 6 colorless mana. So that card is insane. I'll just say that. Next, we have Force of Will. We tap 3 colorless and 2 blue. You may pay 1 life and exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay Force of Will's mana cost. Counter target spell. So you literally get a counter spell. You exile a blue card and pay 1 life. That is one of the smallest. You don't have to do a whole lot for it. Basically, I'm trying to say. So that's a beautiful card in itself. And coming up next for our utility, we run 14 utility, and they're kind of spread all over the place. So I figured that's why we'd just throw them all in the same category. So yeah. Excuse me. So we have Toxic Deluge. It costs 2 colorless and 1 black. As an additional cost to Toxic Deluge, pay X life. All creatures get -X/-X until of end of turn. So this is one of the better field wipes. Instead of just straight up destroying, it's saying, yeah, you're going to get net countered out and you're gonna die. So you really can't, unless you counter this, there's really not a whole lot you can do about getting net countered and dying. So that's an amazing card. Next up, we have Damnation, 2 colorless and 2 black. Destroy all creatures. They cannot be regenerated. So for going against black decks, this is a really good card, or just any deck that just regenerates. Most of the time, it's going to be black though. So yeah, it's an amazing card. So next up, we have Training Grounds. It costs 1 blue. And activated abilities of creatures you control cost up to 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the amount of mana and ability cost to activate to less than 1 mana. So this just works perfectly with our Scarab God. Let's see here. Kind of clean this up a little bit. I just realized it's piling onto the camera. So yeah, this works perfectly with Scarab God. So basically, if this is out on the field, and it only costs 1 mana, it's amazing. But if this is out on the field, you only have to pay 1 blue and 1 black, which makes it much more reasonable for Scarab God's effect. And then we have Rings of Bright Earth. Whenever you play an activated ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2 colorless. If you do, copy that ability. So it's basically, that also works with Scarab God really well, because that's basically saying you can pay 6 and you can get 2 triggers of Scarab God's effect, and that is also awesome. Training Grounds, I think, is just for Scarab God, I think it's a little bit better. But either way, they're both amazing. So coming up next, we have Lightning Greaves. You pay 2 colorless, and equipped creature has haste and shroud, but you don't have to pay anything for it to be equipped. Lightning Greaves is such an amazing card. I honestly could see it, if it stops getting reprints, I could see it going up in price a lot. It's just an amazing card. We also have Brazen Borrower. You pay 1 colorless and 2 blue mana. It has flash and flying. It can only block creatures with flying, but its incident is really why we run it. You pay 1 colorless and 1 blue. Return target non-land permanent to an opponent controls to its owner's hand. And then it goes on its little adventure, and then you get it back. And so if anything with flying is trying to fly over your zombies, you summon it and you block it. So it's similar to it's just really good, because like we said earlier with Wonder, you don't have a lot to deal with flying in Zombie Tribal. So yeah. Coming up next, we have 2 cards that actually play from our opponent's the top of our opponent's libraries. So we have Thief of Sanity, and we have Talon of the Telepath. So Thief of Sanity, you pay 1 colorless, 1 blue, and 1 black, and that's flying. Again, awesome. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 3 cards of that player's library, exile 1 of them face down, then put all the rest of them into their graveyard. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it, you may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast that spell. A lot of words. Next, we have Talon of the Telepath, 2 colorless and 2 blue mana. Target opponent reveals the top 7 cards of his or her library. You may play, and you may cast an instant or sorcery card from among them without paying their mana cost. Then that player puts the rest of them into their graveyard. If you have a spell mastery, it only requires you having 2 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard. You can play 2 from the top of their library. So, Talon of the Telepath helps us to mill opponents, which is one of the things we can do with this deck. And then we have Thief of Sanity, which also kind of mills as well. So we just get to play opponents' cards. And we love doing this, especially if we love doing this for 2 reasons. There are certain things that blue and black cannot do in Magic. So if you, for example, if you targeted a green and say you got a cultivate or something, that would be great. I mean, that's not, you know, they're lower on the standards, but that would be great, right? You know, just anything that those colors can't do usually, that's what we try and go for. But we also can try and go for colors that share with us, because it would synergize a little bit more. You know what I mean? So it's either way you can go with that. Either way would be awesome. Next up we have Rankle, Master of Pranks. We pay 2 colorless and 2 black. It has flying and haste, which is, like I said, I keep coming back to it. Flying's awesome. Whenever Rankle deals combat damage to a player, choose any number. So you can choose any of these effects, but however, they must go in this order. Each player discards a card. Each player loses 1 life and draws a card. Each player sacrifices a creature. So first you discard a card, then lose 1 life, draw a card, and sacrifice a creature. But you can choose all of them, like I said, but you have to go from top to the bottom. So all those. You know, it's all situational. It's a utility belt. You can, whatever you need it for. But this card is really, really good, because basically 3 damage right off the bat as soon as you summon it. Next up is our only life gain card in this deck. We have Gray, Merchant of Asphodel. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. So if you have 3 opponents and they each get dealt 4 damage because you have 4 devotion to black, you get to heal 12 life. I think it's a it's a nasty card. I'm not gonna lie. I've healed a lot from this card, and it's also saved me in a lot of bad situations in EDH. And then finally, we are running Diluvian Primordial, and so I can't say it. Primordial. So basically, you can play. Diluvian has flying, and this one has Intimidate. They're both. I'm sorry. Diluvian's a 5/5, and he is a 5/4. So you can play. When they enter the battlefield, for each opponent, you may cast up to 1 target instant or sorcerer from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. And instead of after you cast it, it basically gets exiled. So this is instants or sorceries, and this does the exact same thing, but with creatures. So yeah. So these are the other 3 commanders that people love running in Zombie Tribal. So these cards, this is more for mono black. So Dizzy, I never even thought about. This was like the last one I always considered, but then I saw recently where people are actually making EDH decks with Sidizzy Undead Vizier as their commander. So it's a mono black zombie deck. I don't really know why you'd go for this. I feel like it's not that good. I feel like mono black. I feel like there's no reason not to go with a blue and black deck over. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't go with. I feel like in most cases, blue and black is better than mono black. I feel like 2 colors in general are better than 1 color. So you know, it's not, but it is a deck. It is a alternate commander for zombies, but I don't see how it would work better. But if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. So next up we have Gisa and Geralt. This is actually my starting commander when I started playing EDH, and then I alternated between this and Scarab God, and it really just came down to the fact that Scarab God is a lot more consistent. You can do a lot more with this. But Gisa Geralt is the one that lets you mill 4, and then you can, during each of your turns, you may cast a zombie creature card from your graveyard. So, like I said, it's not really that powerful when compared to Scarab God. Scarab God has 3 massive effects, and you know, it just keeps coming back. And also, it's it just synergizes and it's more consistent. Scarab God is. So, and then next we have Grimgrin, which this is, I feel like this might be the most popular It's one of the most popular zombie commanders. I've seen so many decks built around this, and I see why. I love a Grimgrin. Okay, he is a monster of a card, and you know, he's just a. It's more for this is more for a zombie beatdown deck for sure. But yeah, he's a madman. So those are the 3 alternate commanders a lot of people run. So you don't have to go with Scarab God. I would say though, if you're gonna build a deck really similar, the most similar deck you could build is Geese of Geralt to this one. But like I said, it's just an alternate, okay? You know what I mean? So but like I said, Scarab God's a lot better. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about next. We're gonna be talking about the combos and alternate win cons. So we need to go ahead and get these cards out here. Let's see. Okay. So one of our alternate win cons, which I love, you can actually win the entire game with just 9 mana in this deck. So here's how we do it. So you tap 2 colorless and 1 black for Buried Alive. I will say my 3 cards when I use Buried Alive most of the time, I'm gonna go for Triskelion, Mikaeus, and Wonder. We want all of our stuff to have flying if we're gonna have to go into a game where we're actually fighting and actually, you know, beating down stuff. We definitely want flying. So we would cast this, right? Buried Alive, and then so we'd get our Triskelion, our Mikaeus, and our Wonder, and then we'd put them and then we'd cast Ever After. We'd pay 4 colorless and 2 black and return Triskelion and return Mikaeus to the battlefield, and they would create an infinite loop. So this is why they create an infinite loop, right? Mikaeus reads, other non-creatures other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. When a creature with Undying dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Triskelion reads, when it enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. Remove a +1/+1 counter from a Triskelion, and you can deal 1 damage to creature or player. So what you do, why this combo so well is you'd use 1, I believe it's 1 on Triskelion, 1 damage from Triskelion, and you basically use it till it dies, and then it would come back, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, you do it again. It's an infinite ping of damage, right? It's just because Mikaeus allows it to bring him back. I'm gonna post, you know, just to make this just to make this a little bit easier, we're gonna post it down, you know, post it down in the description box on, you know, how exactly it works. I'm not good at explaining things, obviously, so yeah, we're just gonna post that in the description box below, so go and check that out. But yeah, that you can literally win the game with 9 mana in this deck, and that's it's just insane to me. Next we can find it. Sorry, I'm in a gigantic mess right here. So here's what we got, right? We can ping a lot of damage out using Gravecrawler. So here's what you do. Use Alter Dementia, because remember, you can sacrifice a creature at instant speed and mill. You would have Gravecrawler out, and then you'd also have, you don't really have to have Diregraph Captain out, but it's an option. So Vengeful Dead, like we said earlier, Vengeful Dead and Plague Belcher, whenever another zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So theoretically, for the first turn, I mean, for the first ping, you wouldn't even need Ulcer of Dementia. It would just come in later. But basically, in Plague Belcher summoned, you kill Gravecrawler, and when Gravecrawler is killed, each opponent loses 2 life, because Vengeful Dead and Plague Belcher basically have the same effect. So they get pinged, And yeah, each opponent loses 2 life. And then this one says whenever another zombie you control dies, each target opponent loses 1 life. So basically, it's Gravecrawler. You keep summoning it because its effect is you may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie, in which you would because Vengeful Dead, Plague Belcher are out on the field. So you just ping for a very, very large amount of damage. So you really you'd only need to do this like 15. I mean, you could do this. Okay, I've actually spent turns where I literally tap out on this and just keep on summoning it and dying, sacrificing it with Altar of Dementia. It just deals a gigantically large amount of damage to your opponents. Okay, so those are our 2 alternate or just combos. The Chaos obviously being an instant win, and then the Gravecrawler just being able to ping so much damage. So I will say another way of winning, guys. I didn't want to focus on this too hard, but another way you could win with this deck would be to milling your opponents. And there's a lot of ways you can mill in this deck, but it's just it's just not something I like to do because I already run a mill deck, which I will also be doing a profile on. But I already run a mill deck, so sometimes I'm just like I don't want to mill with this deck, so I try and go for the burn, beat down, Scarab God. But there's also the milling. So right now we're gonna go over 25 alternate cards you could be running instead of some of the ones we have here. So let's go ahead and get into that. Alright, so coming up we have Carrion Feeder. So Carrion Feeder, it can block, but you sacrifice a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Carrion Feeder. The reason we like this so much is because we want to try and get Carrion Feeder beefed up. But with Gravecrawler will work so well with Carrion Feeder. So what we would do is we tap 1. We get this in the grave somehow. First off, we have to get Gravecrawler in the grave. But we tap for 1 black, and then it comes to the grave. Or okay, I'm saying this all wrong. You sacrifice it. You sacrifice a Gravecrawler with Carrion Feeder, and then you bring him back, paying for 1 black mana, and then you do it again, then you do it again, then you do it again. So Carrion Feeder gets beefed up a ton, and he's just like a 10/10. But here's the thing, guys. You can do this very, very early, okay? You can do this turn 2, turn 3. Like, if your opponent is having a slow start, I've been able to do like 8-10 damage in like turn 2, turn 3. So I mean, it's I don't know, it's just insane. So that's why you'd run Carrion Feeder. But you want to make sure you're running Gravecrawler, I feel like, because there's not a whole lot. It's not, without Gravecrawler, it can't do a ton, I will say that. Okay. So next we have Stitcher Supplier. This is such a good mill card. I'm just gonna say that. It only costs 1 black and it's a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield or dies, put the top 3 cards of your library into your grave. And we talked about all the sacrificing cards we have, so it's easy to get it out and it's easy for it to die. So you're just gonna be milling a ton. And we can also bring it back from the dead, you know what I mean? So we can mill a ton with this card, and that's what we love to do. So it's an awesome turn 1. It's an awesome turn 1 play. Next we have Seductress Alchemist, 2 colorless mana and 1 black. When it comes into play, if you control a blue permanent, return target non-land permanent to its owner hits hand. So it's a zombie that bounces things, and we love it. We just love it. It's just one thing we want to do. It's just bouncing things. Turn 3 is amazing. Next we have Witch Ward of Inks. 1 colorless and 1 blue and 1 black. Has 2 really good effects. The first one being tap 1 blue and 1 black. Tap this creature, put a blue 1/1 blue and black zombie wizard creature token into play. So it's a token generator, but it's also its second effect is also really good, where you can tap 2 blue and 2 black. Target player loses X life and puts mills for the top of their library, where X is the number of zombies we control. So if we have a ton, we can do a ton of damage. And we can mill. So it's just like it just works perfectly in this deck. I'm just running it because we can't run 150 cards in EDH. You know. But if there's more slots, I definitely would. But it just doesn't seem worth. Lifebane Zombie is next. You tap 2 black and 1 colorless. It has Intimidate. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a green or white creature card from it and exile that card. So when in EDH, you're going to be going against a lot of green and white decks. I would just say this. So there's a lot of targets you could do with this, and it's a 3/1. It's a lot of damage. Next up, we have Corpse Augur. When it dies, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of creature cards in target player's graveyard. I've been in situations before where I had such low life where I just wanted to whoever had the least amount. So that this card has been it's really good. It's similar to Graveborn Muse, but I think Graveborn Muse easily comes on top. And it's a 4/2. Next we have Fallen Shinobi. It is 3 colorless, a blue and a black, and it has an ninjutsu for 4. Return an unblocked attacker you control to hand. So if I'm swinging with, I don't know, I'll grab, well, no, Thief of Sanity is a horrible example. If I have Grave Crawler, right, I can tap for 1 blue, 1 black, and 2 colorless. Get Fallen Shinobi, return this to my hand, and instead Fallen Shinobi attacks, triggering its effect. Remember the creature has to be unblocked. When it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top 2 cards from their library, and until end of turn, you may play those cards without paying their mana costs. And it's just it's a great card. It's a great effect. So next up we have Skin Render. 2 colorless mana and 2 black. When it enters the battlefield, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature. It's a 3/3. So you get to kill a creature, and you also get a 3/3 onto the battlefield, which is awesome. Next up we have Undead Alchemist. You pay 3 colorless and 1 blue. If a zombie would deal combat damage to a player, instead that player puts that many cards from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard from his or her library, exile that card and put a 2/2 black zombie token creature on the battlefield. So, for milling, you get zombie tokens, and you get the mill. So it's an awesome card. I've considered running this in my mill deck as well as my zombie deck, and it's just like it would work for both. But I just think for right now, I have better options. But in the future, I could possibly see me putting this in. But it's an awesome card. So next up, we have Noxious Ghoul. It's 3 colorless and 2 black. Whenever Noxious Ghoul or another zombie comes into play, all non-zombie creatures get -1/-1 until the end of the turn. This is also awesome. So it's basically it can turn into a nuke. This card can turn into a field wipe for non-zombie creatures, which can affect Scarab God, but honestly, trading at everybody else's creatures in Scarab God, it's fine. It's fine. I think it'd be a fine thing to do. So yeah, it's basically just a net counter field wipe. It can be. Next up, we have Goldcaller Gisa. You pay 3 colorless and 2 black. Pay 1 black, tap Goldcaller Gisa, sacrifice another creature, put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrifice creature power. So with something like Diluvian Primordial, I mean, I'm not saying you'd want to do this, but it has 5 power, so you would get 5 2/2 black zombie tokens. So it'd be worth, it would be a worth thing. You know, I feel like it'd be worth, but just depends on the card. Next up, we have Shieldred, Whispering one. So for the longest time, up until probably a week ago, we had this in our deck. But I realized we want to thin out our deck, and we want a low CMC. But this is just such a hard card to put on the field, I feel like, most of the time. It has Swamp Walk at the beginning of our upkeep. Return target creature card from our grave to the battlefield, which is amazing. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature, which is also amazing. This is a card I am still considering if I'm officially leaving it out, but I feel like as of now it is, just because it has such a high CMC, and we don't want it in our hand. Yeah, we definitely don't want it in our hand. We want to cast it with something like Ever After. We want to cast it much more easily than we can do normally. Next up, we have Skull Clamp. Again, this works really well with the Gravecrawler. So equipped creature gets +1/-1. So when you equip it, it basically kills Gravecrawler, and then when it's put into a graveyard, draw 2 cards. So you can draw a ton of cards, I'm just saying. So you pay 1 colorless to equip it, and then 1 black to get a Gravecrawler onto the field. There's a lot of cards you can draw with this, and it's just an awesome card. It's obvious. I mean, it's running a lot of decks. Next up, we have Thought Scour. You tap 1 blue, target player mills 2, and you draw a card. This would be really good for our deck because we like milling and we also like drawing cards. So, you know, it's just it's as simple as that. Excuse me. Coming up next, we have Throne of the God Pharaoh. 2 colorless mana. At the beginning of our end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures we control. So this is if you're, say you casted Army of the Damned, okay, and say you had Scarab God on the field. So yeah, you say you already had Scarab God on the field, and then you cast Army of the Damned. The Army of the Damned tokens come in tapped, so you get 13/13 tapped, and then you get Throne of the God Pharaoh, and so it deals 13 damage on your end step, and then 13 damage on your next upkeep step. I'm just saying that is nasty. Okay, that's just not. It goes without saying that's disgusting. But there's also it goes along with the Scarab God burn. I'll just say that. Next up, we have Call to the Grave, 4 colorless and 1 black. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-zombie creature. At the beginning of the end step, if there are no creatures on the battlefield, sacrifice Call to the Grave. And most of the time, we're going to be having creatures on the battlefield, and so it's a great thing to do / have. So yeah, it's basically everybody has to sacrifice a creature. The only thing we don't like about this card, or one of the only things we don't like about this card, is the fact that it would kill Scarab God theoretically. So next we have Devastation Tide, 3 colorless and 2 blue mana. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands, or you can cast it for its miracle cost. If it was the which is 1 blue and 1 colorless, you may cast it if it was the first card you drew this turn. Next up, we have Liliana Death's Majesty, 3 colorless and 2 black. +1, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. -3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. And then -7, destroy all non-zombie creature tokens. So pretty easily you get a field wipe. And it has a lot of awesome effects that synergize with Scarab God pretty well. Alright, so next up we have Increasing Ambition and Razaketh's Right. Just basically cheap tutors. Razaketh's Right has a cycling for 1 black mana. So it's basically your budget tutors that cost a lot of mana, but that comes with being budget. But they're both really good cards, and you should run them if you can't get your hands on like a big boy tutor, I guess I'll say, like a demonic vampiric or something like that. So next up, let's see here. Set these to the side. So next up we have Liliana's Mastery. It has 3 colorless and 2 black. Zombie creatures you control get +1/+1, and when it enters the battlefield, you create two black zombie tokens. Next up, we have Rooftop Storm, which is 5 colorless and 1 blue. Basically, this card is kind of goes without saying. It's just a really good card in zombies. You get to play your zombies for free. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Next up, we have Zombie Apocalypse, 3 colorless and 3 black mana. Return all zombie cards from our grave to the battlefield, tapped, then destroy a humans. This is another card that would synergize with Throne of the God Pharaoh really well. And then the fact that there's actually a lot of human, or there's just a lot of human cards in Magic in general, so it'd be a great card. Destroying all humans. If there's actually a human EDH deck that we're going against, they're not going to be too happy. And then we have Bolus's Citadel, which is 3 colorless and 3 black mana. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. So you lose life instead of paying the mana cost. And then its bottom effect is, we can zoom in on here. You tap it, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life, which is insane in a token generator deck. If we can just sacrifice 10 permanents. If we can get this ability off like 3, considering it's a pretty late game card, if we can cast it like 2 or 3 times, that's just ridiculous. It's insane. And then finally, for our last alternate card, we have Decree of Pain, 6 colorless and 2 black. Destroy our creatures, then they can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. So if you're going against a token deck, and you are a token deck, and you destroy our creatures, you're going to be drawing a crap ton of cards. And that just, that's just insane. But it also has a cycling ability, 3 colorless mana and 2 black mana. When you cycle it, you can all creatures get -2/-2 until the end of turn. So if you need draw power and the creatures on the field aren't very big, it's basically 2 field wipes in one. It's basically 2 field wipes in one. It's just so let's see. I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, those are the alternate commanders, alternate cards in the actual main deck. If you have any questions concerning, or just like thoughts in general on the videos, or ideas for the deck, or just anything like that, or if you're needing help building a Scarab God deck, just comment below and I will be sure to answer it. So yeah, thank y'all so much for watching. It's been an awesome time. I'm thinking about doing more Magic videos in the future, but we will see. But yeah, like always guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.